some epic foreshadowing that I was able to come up with, and it was pretty simple in that when Simone Biles opted to not participate in most of the events at the Olympics, I wondered what would it look like if, and it's not a direct parallel, like I don't think that in men's sports you will ever see a star athlete, and she is a superstar athlete in any sports world, but she's a superstar obviously in gymnastics, say, I can't participate in our sport's biggest event because of a mental health issue. Now, the truth is she had what's known as the Twisties, which we look at when you hear mental health, you get all the people who like you're just not sensitive enough. And like, look, there's all different levels of what a mental health issue is. And as I've told you before, generally, this is a generalization, but it's a true generalization. Generally, in sports, what allows athletes to be better than the rest of us is that they can push through. Brett Favre, when his dad dies, can still perform. You know, how did that guy do it? How did he overcome? Who was the kicker for? He's a longtime kicker, and I think he was kicking for, I'm going to say either the Falcons or the Buccaneers. Remember his son died?
Matt Bryant.
It was Matt Bryant, right? And Matt Bryant kicked that weekend after his son died, and I'm crying watching. He's crying kicking extra points and field goals, and you're like, how does that guy do that? And the answer is like that's the spirit of athletics, is that these men and women are able to compartmentalize their fears, their anxiety, even off the field depression, any sort of issues, and then go out and perform way better than we're actually capable of. That's what makes them, right? So look, it's a different deal now. So Ben Simmons, this is not LeBron before the NBA Finals, okay? And Ben Simmons obviously is a different dude and has a different background and wasn't subject to the crimes that happened to Simone Biles. But remember, if we're fair about Biles, that wasn't what she said it was about. It was never brought up. It was more the gymnastics things and having the Twisties. He said he's not mentally able to perform with the Sixers. Not mentally able to perform with the Sixers. So what does that mean? Now, to most of us, I'm just going to assume here, right? To most of us, we read this and we see this and we're like, come on, dude. You just don't want to be there, and so you're going to use every possible excuse in the books to not play. But are we supposed to be sensitive to it? Right? You guys tell me, like, am I supposed to be sensitive to Ben Simmons because Ben Simmons, he tried to no-show, then he showed up so he'd get paid, then he seemingly purposely got kicked out of practice. Now they're going to return home, play in front of Philadelphia fans who are going to give him the business, and suddenly now he's got a mental health issue. Byron, you tell me, should I be sensitive to Ben Simmons?
No.
Why not?
I just don't think that there has, from everything that we've heard over the last, 3 months since the Sixers, 4 months since the Sixers were eliminated from the playoffs, none of this has been brought up.
I agree. Now, it doesn't mean that, again, I agree with you, okay? Now, a psychologist or somebody else will say, well, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means
Correct.
He didn't share it at this time,
Yeah.
or whatever, all the stuff he's going through. And I have no doubt that there's a mental health issue there. I've seen it myself, where when you miss shots, you don't shoot, it builds up, and it's like stage fright. You can't even get yourself to shoot a basketball. I have no doubt there, but is it so debilitating that through an entire offseason he can't work through it? I don't believe it. I think it's bull, but I'm not allowed to be sensitive at all to it, right? Which is kind of part of my – I understand the stories are far different, but again, that plays into we're picking and choosing based upon what we actually believe in terms of mental health.
Yeah, and the whole reason why I hesitated is exactly how I think and because you don't want to just pass it off, because I believe it is a real thing, but I don't believe that is what is the issue with Ben Simmons right now. Now, maybe this is developed because of how things have gone on with the 76ers. Maybe I should be more sensitive to that. But there just didn't seem to be, there just never seemed to be that narrative. Both sides were talking. Both sides were agreeing on getting out of Philly. Then he lost money, and so then he shows up at the team facility with people not even knowing that he's going to be there. And then we find out he can't recuperate the money, and he's just hanging. Like I don't know. It just seems like there were other issues than his mental well-being at the time.
Well, you and I actually agree. It's just this interesting space in which we're in. Let me ask you, Jason Stewart, how do you, when you hear a guy go, "Hey, I got mental health issues," how does it land with you?
I mean, in a vacuum, I would take it at face value, but it's way too much water under the bridge here, right? Especially if you read these reports now that, like, the one caveat or the one loophole in the collective bargain contract here is that the team has to pay you if the reason why you can't play is for mental health issues. It's almost like his agent went down the contract and said, this is the one thing that we could use here and still get paid. I think there's a healthy skepticism from a lot of people here, and it doesn't look at insensitive. The Simone Biles thing, I think, is a completely different situation. That was just kind of out of nowhere and us reacting to a certain situation. To Dan's point, there's been so many, building blocks here that it's like, okay, now you're going to go to this one? I mean, I think that skepticism is not insensitive here. That's my long answer to your question, Doug.
No, I love that answer because I actually agree with it in many different ways. I just think it's interesting. I mean, like, look, finding the loophole where you still get paid. I mean, it's kind of diabolical. And, saying you have mental health issues generally is like saying, hey, my mom has cancer, and then you lay off the yo mama jokes, right? Like, everybody's like, whoa, stay away there. But he just doesn't have any equity. Yes.
Yeah, and I think that the damage that it could do going further, if this isn't the case, to real mental health issues. Like, you mentioned Simone Biles. Simone Biles was competing in the Olympics and then tried her, vault, and it didn't work. Ben Simmons just didn't show up. I mean, like, there's something about going through and all of it, and so when she walked away, like, she gave an attempt. Ben was just staying away himself until he started losing money. So it's very difficult for me to compare the two. And then you throw in the U.S. gymnastics and the sexual abuse that went into that organization, and so to me, I can't even compare the two of being on the same page.
I agree, but I also think that, again, it's one of those, like, all right, do we call a guy out for faking it?
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. Like, I mean, that's what I would be concerned about, because I think that there's been great strides in this, and so now, we've had people who have questioned other athletes, and this is, to me, is the most obvious that I have seen, where I think it's different. I think it's different than Simone Biles. I think it's different than Naomi Osaka, and it just, to me, is just, almost like a crying wolf in essence.
Oh no, I don't doubt it. I also think Naomi Osaka's is completely different than Simone Biles is completely different than you pick. Like, Naomi Osaka didn't love all the attention, the problem was like her career path was one that brought her more and more attention. Like she wasn't comfortable being under whatever level of microscope she felt like she was under. And yet you were on the cover of Sports Illustrated. You did light the torch. You did win the U.S. Open. Like these are things, and you win the U.S. Open is within your field. So that's an achievement. But the other stuff is stuff that you could have easily like, hey, I'm not comfortable there. It's like, there's a bunch of different sides to it. And I felt the Osaka thing only bothered me in that it felt like she blamed the media for something that was going on with her personally. And I felt like that was unfair, calling out the media as being unfair, which I didn't think they were ever unfair to her.
Yeah, understood.
So, yeah, they all are different, but it is fascinating. And it does feel like Ben Simmons is one of these rare guys that with every next move that they figure out, he has less and less equity with the public, right? Less and less equity with the public.
Yep.
You know, had he said, hey, look, man, I'm having some, and he said 3 months ago, I'm having some issues. You know, anybody who's ever dealt with mental health issues in sports, call it the yips. I can't get myself to shoot. I can't make it. I struggle in front of a crowd of people shooting the basketball. Like, he didn't even have to do that. If he said, like, all of this stuff is related to mental health issues, people would have been like, hey, you're good. Take all the time. The problem was we didn't hear any of that. You know, all we heard was he's working out with his guy and they're posting these videos, you know, of him working out and making jump shots. And then I don't want to play for you anymore. I'm putting my houses on the market. I'm not showing up. I'm going to show up. Then I do show up. I got my cell phone in my pocket. Then I don't want to participate. And now you go mental health issue. Yeah, I mean, it does. It sounds exactly like Boy Who Cried Wolf. Exactly like it.
To your point, Doug, it's like, obviously Twitter's a real bad barometer, but I don't know if you saw this, but the Sixers are kind of getting some blowback for calling for the psychiatric evaluation, right? And to me, that's like a business protecting their own. That's what they're supposed to do. It's like that story with Kobe Bryant's wife, Vanessa. It got leaked that the Orange County is asking for a psych eval of her, and they're getting a bunch of stuff. But these are people protecting their enterprises here. This is the way businesses run. But it's gotten to that point in society where you can't even question anything that has to do with mental health.
Yeah, I mean the I don't know enough about. I know exactly what you're saying with the Vanessa Bryant thing, which I believe honestly that's kind of par for the course, right? It's par for the course. She's saying her mental health is affected by the fact that these sheriff's deputies shared these photos, which is just awful, right? And she's suing them. So as part of defending yourself, I'm sure a lawyer's like, okay, well, she's got to get a mental health eval, right? That's how we do it. And then I'm guessing her lawyer, somebody from her side, leaks that out. Are you kidding me? You want this woman whose husband and daughter died in a helicopter crash to get a mental health eval? And the answer is like, yeah, that's actually what we do. That's how the process actually works. So I'm with you. I don't think it's as sinister as it's being positioned to be.